everyone's interested in the soul.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things that because everyone has different opinions about it, and there's no real, I suppose, theory that people say, okay, this is it. No, we all tend to have our own ways of thinking about it.
That's right. Funny too, because the other day something popped up on YouTube, and speaking about the soul, it was an American TV show, and the host had this young, beautiful blind boy as a guest. And the young kid said to him, "I love you." And the host said to him, "You know what? One of the reasons I love you is because you have soul, because you can't see what I look like, you can't judge my appearance, and you just go by love." Isn't that gorgeous?
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Because I suppose when you don't have one of the senses, you go with others.
Yes.
The other senses also get heightened, and we do pick up on things, don't we, with people, and it's not through vision most of the time.
No, it's the beautiful part of people shines out, and they actually start appearing even more beautiful.
Yeah, and it happens with babies. It happens with animals.
Yes,
they tend to pick up on things with people, and we can't, of course, understand what that is. Science doesn't have any insight into that because we're talking about something that's non-material, but it's incredible how that works, isn't it?
It is, like either the soul they're picking up or the aura.
Yeah. There's so many things that I think it's energy. And all those things are energy, of course.
Of course.
They're made out of energy. The whole universe is made out of energy. We know that.
Yeah.
And so are we. So I think some people are more finely tuned with regards to picking up those things. And sometimes our vision does, in one way, it become an obstacle because we're not in tune with the other parts that allow us to pick up on these vibes. Yeah,
which sort of happened with all the native indigenous people. They were more picking up on vibes back then, I think.
Yeah, it is. Some cultures put a little bit more emphasis on things like that, but of course our vision is a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
It allows us to be able to at least for the initial part when we meet someone to pick up on some aspects of their behaviour, what they look
body
like,
talk.
Body language,
language.
And sometimes it's not accurate, of course, and we bring in our own biases sometimes. But if we just settle and allow us to feel in one way how we are ourselves feeling with that person, then that's a pretty good start. And I usually find your first instinct is usually correct, isn't it? Yeah, instinct, intuition, whatever you want to call it is marvellous. Usually we should go with that. And, of course, in the modern world, we've lost a little bit of the ability to be fine-tuned with that as well. Yeah. Because there's not as much need, of course, if we were in a state of nature to be vigilant and to work out where there's danger or so forth. But yeah, I find that we all have that capacity. You don't need to be a psychologist or a philosopher or anything like that. It's just a matter of allowing ourselves to become more comfortable going with those other things. That's right, Carlos. Last week we spoke a bit about astral travel, and we thought this time, wrapping it all up, the deep and meaningful things like near-death experience. Yeah. Have you had one? Well, probably not very near. Yeah. But we've all have had occasions in our life that we feel, wow, if I had not just looked the other way for that second, maybe I would have crossed the road and I would have got hit by a car or whatever that may be. Time. Yeah, or if I was just 10 seconds earlier or 10 seconds later, but I haven't had the experience, luckily in one way, I suppose, and unlucky in others, because it does, when we do have a near-death experience, it does sometimes change our lives for the better. It does. I've had one. Yeah, about 20 years ago. Yeah. I was grieving my children so badly, and I just about had a broken heart. You know how people can die of a broken heart? They and it's been proven, hasn't it? Yep. So I actually was in my sleep, and I went, and I was surrounded by the most beautiful love that there is no vocabulary
vocabulary here on the earth for that feeling. We don't have the words for it. And when you read about them or see videos on YouTube and stuff these days, people talk about it more. And it's always the same. They're different for each person, but everybody says the love you feel. And you do come back from them a changed person.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of stories, and we all have. And, of course, sometimes it can be interpreted as many other things. Depends what your focus is on. But I do believe as a psychologist that if someone does have experienced something like that, regardless on how you decide to talk about it or to justify it in certain ways, there's always ways that we can look at in a different light of things. But if we look at it purely in an emotional and, if you like, spiritual manner, it can allow us to realize that our life is temporary, that we aren't going to live forever, of course. It's the same definition. But because we forget that, the brain is very wise. The mind is wise. If we were constantly knowing or being aware that we were going to die, it would be very hard to do anything. So we go through life with all these plans, and we wake up every day trying to do new things, and we make plans for 5 years' time, and really we don't know if we're going to be there that time. But it's a wonderful way of being able to live on a daily basis, knowing that we're mortal.
That's right.
But when we encounter these situations, suddenly we remember again, wow, that could have been it. And maybe I'm going to do something different with my life.
That's right. And it's as clear as anything, even 20 years later. So it's a lovely message to have, isn't it?
That's incredible. And do you think it changed your life from there on end?
It did. I mean, I was always really loved people and animals and everything like that. But I think it just gave me more, hope for today. Like, I'm here today, and I feel we're going to somewhere much, it's just as beautiful or even more beautiful when we do pass on. So it just gives you a lot of hope, really.
It does. And it gives us also the hope that maybe there is something else.
Yes.
Maybe that we're not just cells and matter. Maybe we are more important than what maybe biologists and physicists want us to believe. And not that there's any real hardcore scientific evidence for these things, but we don't need them. Faith is also important in our life because of other reasons. I don't think faith and reason or science is the same thing. I don't think you can actually. They're two different realms.
Yes,
two different realms, and if you can use both, depending on the situation, and allowing it to make your life better, I'm all for it.
That's right. And any philosophical thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, there's been lots of research on near-death experiences, and there's lots of cases where people have really changed their lives after those situations. And a lot of philosophers throughout time have been curious, at least, of that transition, right, from existence to non-existence, if you like. And so there's since the time of course, although even the pre-Socratics, like Heraclitus and Pythagoras, who we all know through mathematics, and of course even some of the modern philosophers have looked at, like Heidegger, who's a great German philosopher of the 20th century, who looked at the theory that we have to, in a way, live reminding ourselves that death is imminent, and not in a pessimistic way, but in an optimistic way, in the sense that, wow, how lucky am I that I exist now? Sure, one day I won't exist, but if I remind myself of that, I'm going to try to make the best of today.
Yes, yeah, good on you, Carlos. Lovely of you to come in, and love is everything, isn't it?
Love is everything. And look, it's one of those things. This is international. It's not even part of our Western culture. It's part of Eastern culture, Hindu culture. We have studied that there's a lot of things in common, especially when it comes to death, and how we can use that in our favour.
Good on you, Carlos Camacho Psychologist. See you next week.
For sure.
Good on you. You've chosen a great song from the Box Tops.
It's a nice
About
song,
the
isn't
soul.
it? Yeah, why not? I thought something relevant, and it's a little bit uplifting, isn't it?
Beautiful. Soul Deep.